folks, welcome back to the channel. After the little trail hopping that Daniel and I did in my last video, I've gotten a lot of comments about some of the stuff that I put on the bike and the performance that I've gotten from those parts that I put on. And I also put a Facebook page, or on my Facebook page I put a post in there about a picture with all the accessories that I put on my bike, and I got a lot of comments on that. They want to know more about everything that's on here, so I'm going to sit back and do a video right now on what I've done to this bike to make it El Diablo 142 special. Okay, and it all starts if you're gonna be putting a USB port charger on your CT125. I suggest that you put it on as one of the very first things you do, and here's why. When you put this charger, this is where it sets, is right here. When you put this charger on, the wiring harness for it will be a red and a black wire. The red wire, of course, is going to be the hot wire, and the black wire is going to be the ground wire. You take your ground wire and you hook it right here underneath this bolt for your horn. That gives you a good solid ground. Then when you run your hot wire for it, you run that inside your headlight, and you got to take the outer part of the headlight off of it, pull it apart. And if you put brackets like this up here first, then you got to take all of this off to get back into your headlight. That's what I did, so that's why I say if you're going to put it on fairly soon, and then you can hook it straight into your headlight. Your headlight only comes on when the motor is running, so there's no way that you can accidentally leave that turned on and run your battery down. Not that you can't start the bike without the battery on it, but yeah, it's always good. If you got a battery, it's always good to have it charged up. So anyhow, number one thing was I would put the USB port charger on there, and this particular one, which I'll show you pictures of, cost me $4 US. I know it almost was just too expensive to put on here, but nah, it turned out pretty good. Now, second, third, fourth items that you should put on, if you're gonna put them on and you want this stuff on here, is I put this rack right here protects my headlight. This rack right here is for small storage stuff, not a whole lot. I put my cap up there, maybe a bottle of water or some OECT or something like that, spare gloves or whatever. I don't put a whole lot of stuff up there. If I'm going to haul a few tools with me, I'll wrap them up and I'll put them up here on top of this. I don't want to put a lot of weight up here, so it's not something I'm going to put a lot of weight in. This rack right here is on the down tube for the bike. This rack right here is where I put my bag for my camera equipment. It really protects my camera equipment. It keeps it away from anything. If I do fall down, which no, I have not fallen down, it's going to keep things from hitting it and damaging it and all that stuff. So that's a good place to put your camera equipment, and that's why I bought this rack right here. So I got those from the Cub House here in Chiang Mai, Thailand. It's they're loosely affiliated with Honda. They have a lot of stuff that they have a brochure out that has a lot of stuff that you can buy for this bike through them. Okay, I've got an awful lot of inquiries about the tires that I just put on this bike. Now, these tires are manufactured here in Thailand by a company called V Rubber Manufacturing Company. Just so happens this model is the VRM. Okay, you can guess, V Rubber Motorcycle Company. Okay, VRM 022, and the front one is a 275 by 17. The back one is a 317. So anyhow, that answers the questions. Hopefully that answers the questions on these tires. These are the exact same tires that were on the bike, the display bike for the Tokyo Auto Show in 2018, that they introduced the concept bike of this, the 125 Trail, or Honda Cub at that time is what they called it. But it was a red model, and it had these exact tires on it. Why they didn't stay with that, I have no idea, but they are so much better than stock. But then again, it all boils back down to preference on what kind of riding you're going to do. If you're going to be doing a lot of road riding and very, very little off-road riding, and the off-road riding you do is not in loose and muddy stuff, then I'd stick with the stock tires because they work great. I have no complaints on that. They just are not very good in loose stuff, sandy stuff, and wet stuff, and rocky stuff. Okay, that elsewise you're okay with them. But okay, I've also been asked about the rear rack that I put on my bike, and this is a Diablo rear rack. As you can tell, it's much smaller. The stock one came out to here on each side. Was very cumbersome for me to get on the bike. I have a really bad left knee, and it is hard for me to throw a leg up over a bike that has something that stacks up on it. So that rack I went ahead and got, and it is a Diablo brand, which comes from a company called K-Speed. The price on this rack is $80 US, and I like it. It's a lot lighter than the stock unit, and there are a couple other things. I'm going to sit back here and talk about the weight on the stock bike and the weight of this bike. Okay, now before I put the big bore kit on, my plans were to get an air filter system that allowed more air into it, and something that I could clean and reuse instead of replacing the stock filter every time with another stock filter. So this company called SKA builds an air filter that is so similar to a K&N, it's not funny, and they're right here in Thailand also. But that's what I put on my bike, was the SKA air filter, and it looks a lot like the K&N. So the price on that was $36. But it's reusable. It's not something I have to replace every single time I do an air filter change. So while I was replacing the air filter, I went ahead and put this Diablo air cone on. And if you look back in here, right up here, this little wire mesh right here is the protection from big chunks coming up into your air system. Your air filter is right back underneath this. But this is from Diablo. It's a Diablo brand from K-Speed, and the price on that was, I think, $36. I'm not real sure. Let me check on that, and I'll get back to it. But anyhow, that was the Diablo air cone that I put on. At the same time I was, bad knee, at the same time I was doing the air filter system, I also went ahead and put the exhaust system on. I had a subscriber that wanted to know what I gained or didn't gain when I put the air system on it and the exhaust system on it. And to be honest with you, I didn't notice much difference from stock. I'm sure that has to do with ECU and fuel injector. If you're not getting the fuel and the ECU is not going to give you more fuel, then it doesn't do any good to put an exhaust system on there with an air filter. And the exhaust system I put on was, again, a Diablo brand from K-Speed, and it's the solid black two-piece head pipe and muffler system. the nice thing about this, and I didn't realize it until I actually got the pipe in, was right here at this junction right here, it expands out to go to the muffler part, but right in there is a spark arrestor. Then to top it all off, about right in here on the muffler part is another spark arrestor. So it's got dual spark arrestors. I was really impressed with that. But the big thing about this system is the weight on it. My stock muffler was easily closing in on 20 US pounds. This one here, yeah, and if it goes 2.5 pounds, that's it. I mean, there's a big weight gain in just getting that stock muffler off of there. So now the next best thing that I got coming up is this YSS front fork kit, and this is the adjusting screw right up here on it. I'll put a couple of pictures up of the kit itself, and I think of me putting a T-handle 10mm right in here on this one to make adjustments on it. What I did after I got it put on was I went to a pretty rough, bumpy dirt road here real close to the house, and I rode back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and adjusted and adjusted and adjusted. Not making big adjustments, but enough to where I can see differences, and I think I got this pretty close to where I'm going to want to use it. I did this before I went on the ride with Daniel, and I took a 10mm wrench with me to adjust if I felt like I needed any adjustments, and that whole time we were out on the trails it felt pretty good, so I just left it the way it was, and the price on that kit was 116 US dollars. Very good buy. But I don't know if you can get some of this stuff, because YSS is a Thai company and the kit comes out of Thailand, so I don't know if you can get it back in the States or in Australia. I know you can get it in Australia because Ride with Oro got him and put him on his bike, and he's very pleased with it also. So now naturally, if we're going to do the front suspension, well, you got to do something with the back, and I'll tell you why on the back. And this shocked me when I first noticed it on my bike. I was wanting to do a little spring rate adjustment on it, and there are no adjustments whatsoever. You can't adjust the spring rate, and I was flabbergasted on it. I mean, Jesus, the cheap bikes that Honda puts out, you can adjust the spring rate, but there were no adjustments whatsoever on it. So what I ended up purchasing was a set of Diablo. I think they were 4,900 Thai baht. Diablo fully adjustable rear shocks on it. Made a huge difference on the rear end. I put them on before I did the YSS kit on the front, and they made a huge difference. And the last big thing that I did to this was a big bore kit, and it consisted of cylinder with 142cc sleeve in it, a 142cc piston, rings, wrist pin, C-clips, and a new injector. And the injector is the key on this. This injector, when asked by the ECU to give some fuel to it, it's given enough more than what the stock injector did. You don't need to do anything to the ECU. My mechanic, when he put this stuff on, he didn't have to adjust anything. He just told me to take it easy when I rode it. Well, you know, I went out and did the video with doing some heat cycles on it, so I took plenty of care breaking this engine in with the 142 big bore kit on it. But the increase in torque, the increase in the low end on this thing was what impressed me. And the cost on this big bore kit was 100 US dollars here in Thailand. Now I know you guys are gonna flip out when you hear that, but it's going to be a lot more expensive in the US. No matter how you get a kit or how you put a kit together, it's going to be really expensive. But all the items that I talked about are good quality stuff. They've been putting stuff like this on the Honda Monkey, the Honda Wave, the Gnome, or whatever you call it. They call it an MSX here. All those bikes, they've been doing this stuff to them for years. So it's not like this isn't a proven technology. Now once you go past this 140, 150 cc range, they start doing head and crank adjustments on it. So in other words, they're stroking the engine, which means they got to bust the cases loose and go in there and replace the crank and the rod. I notice all the kits that are for the big 181 cc kit has a head in it with valve springs, a camshaft, but no valves. So obviously they're using the same size valves. They're using your same valves on it. So I don't know why on that. And I've heard of those kits detonating. So I don't know if it's just the fact that the guys that are putting these on here are racing friends and going to little competitions and stuff like that, and they're just wrapping the crap out of them, or what. I don't know. Okay, so don't let it scare you off. It's just I've heard not really good things about the 181 cc kit, but hey, the 142 gives this thing enough boost to do some of the stuff that needs to go. And if you don't believe me, check that video out with Daniel, and you can see the difference between me going through that mud hole in slow motion where my back tire is constantly spinning, and Daniel going through that mud hole where his back tire actually stopped and he had to push the bike a little bit to get it going. And that's why I put those two segments in there in slow motion, so you could see the comparison of the two. So anyhow, folks, that's what my 2020, so we don't get a 2021 here in Thailand yet. We get a 2020 Honda CT 125, which I converted into El Diablo 142 Special, and this is the machine. So folks, I thoroughly enjoy this bike, and it has done everything that I want it to do now. So I hope you all enjoyed this video, and my next one's going to be a little adventure ride with Manfred into some terrain that I've never ridden on, but Manfred has. And he says it's a 2 or a 3 on a scale. So we're talking, hey, it's got to be tougher than that first one we went on. All right.